Hello, everyone.
We are so glad you're here.
Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, pull up a chair around the table here at the For This Moment podcast. My name is Laura Matthews.
And I'm Megan Sternhagen. We're two sisters and Regnum Christi women with a desire to share the beauty of the stories of God's kingdom in the lives of women throughout the world.
Our prayer is that this can be a space to inspire and encourage you in your own journey as you walk day by day, responding to the Father who has called you for this moment. Well, hello, Megan. Here we are again, mid-November. I can't believe it. Ever since daylight savings time, I feel like winter is upon us. But how are you doing? How are you holding up?
Yeah, well, don't get me started on daylight savings. It's wretched. I can't stand it. We were surviving. We just had a lovely fall break. Nick was gone in Italy for 8 days with work, and so I declared it to be fall break and went up to Indiana and got to see a lot of friends and family, and got to go to our morning of reflection at our Regnum Christi Family Center, and just landed back home yesterday. Very happy to be here. And yeah, just enjoying the last few sunny days of fall before the cold really sets in. So, how about you, Laura? How's life down south?
Life is good. It's busy. I think it's kind of everyone's trying to get a lot of things done before the holidays. So I just feel like kind of the crunch time right now of like,
Mm-hmm,
oh, we need
mm-hmm.
to have this event and this meeting and this thing. And so November has its challenges, but it's also a beautiful month as well to, I guess for me, it's like a moment to contemplate time and eternity as we go through All Saints and All Souls. And we had a consecrated sister down in Guadalajara who passed away from cancer, breast cancer, last
Oh,
week. So
wow.
just, contemplating heaven, and
Mm-hmm,
that all things are passing away and
mm-hmm.
just
That's
the
very
fall.
November too,
Yeah,
like All
yeah,
Souls.
yeah. The fall leaves and everything, and just how everything is kind of shedding its nature is shedding itself and everything just like passing away. But also I just love this month too for Christ the King, like he's coming. And so I don't know, for me it's just a moment to meditate on what really matters. So really grateful for that
Mm-hmm,
opportunity. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So do you want to introduce our guest, Megan?
Sure. So today we have another lovely Regnum Christi member from Louisville. We have with us today Anna Hudson. So welcome, Anna. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, so I met Anna very recently. She's part of my encounter team, and she has an incredible story, which I've only heard the tip of the iceberg of. So I'm really excited to get into that today. Anna has been a missionary. She's a spiritual director. She has all sorts of amazing things that she is doing, and I'm really, really excited to dive into that today. But first, before we get into that, Anna, I sent this to you yesterday, our traditional icebreaker question of if you could be serving us any meal of your choice, what would we be eating today? Now, I know off the bat that you are a great lover of kimchi. So, am
Oh.
I right in guessing that that might be that might be something to do with it?
I was torn between a good meal of Korean barbecue, bulgogi, with all
Mm-hmm.
the kimchi and
Mm.
vegetable side dishes, or a dish of that I've made for years and years, which is my Louisville chili.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Nice.
Both
What
so
sound good.
what makes a Louisville chili?
it's kind of a hybrid between like Texas chili. It's like nice and hearty, but we also put spaghetti in it.
Nice.
Kind of like the Cincinnati
Nice.
style, but it's not really fully either one. So we have kind of our own unique
Halfway between the two.
flavor to it.
Well, that's awesome. Well,
So
when I was
yeah.
talking to you and your sister 2 weeks ago, I had no idea there were so many different kind of kimchi. You guys
Yes.
were like just listing them off, like, and this kind and this kind and this kind. I was like, wow, that's like a whole
Yes.
world of fermented foods that I have no clue about.
Yes.
Yes.
Aw. That's
Well,
awesome. Yeah. Well, I don't even know what kimchi is, so we'll have to have a
oh,
we'll have to have a post conversation about what that is. So yeah, I'm very illiterate in the Asian food realm. So gotta little by little expand my my knowledge of that. So but yeah, it's so lovely to have you on the podcast. I'm down for the Louisville chili. That just sounds really hearty. Right now it's pouring
It's a
rain
good
and
fall choice. Yeah.
yes, it's pouring rain and it's 40 degrees or something here in Atlanta. So yeah, the fall has come.
Yes.
But yeah, I'd love just to hear, the first question we always ask our guests is just reflecting the Regnum Christi member statute number 8, where it's like Christ reveals his love to us. So when did you first, get to experience the love of Christ and his personal love for you in your life?
and I realize I gave a pretty vague intro as well. So if you want to say anything about who you are and what you do as well, that's totally, you can throw that in.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, my name's Anna. I'm from Louisville. My husband is as well, Wesley. We've been married for 15 years. Um, we served as missionaries with the Salesians of Don Bosco from 2014 to 2016 in a country that shall remain unnamed because foreign missionaries are illegal there, and we've just been asked by our organization not to um, publicly say the name of where we were just to protect the presence of the school there. Um, I also got to serve as a volunteer with the Missionaries of Charity in India for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I associated to Regnum Christi at Christ the King 2019. Have a wonderful, beautiful encounter team that I just love them dearly. We do group hugs and like it's just the best. And um, went through Divine Mercy University's spiritual direction certificate program a couple years ago and am just loving this ministry that found me.
Mm.
And yeah, I do individual direction and I also lead retreats and prayer workshops and have speaking engagements. And it has been just an absolute gift and delight. And so
Mm.
that's me.
I love that. I love the ministry that found me. That's so cool how you
Mm-hmm.
put that. Yeah, yeah. Jesus had it prepared for you. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So the beginning of
Um,
your journey with the Lord, what was that like? Or yeah, your
the
lifelong
very
path.
beginning, I was raised Catholic. I just remember being a little bitty toddler being in church with my parents. We could walk to our parish from where we lived at the time. And I didn't understand what any of the big people were saying,
Mm.
but um, I would look up at the, carved ceiling and be like, this is a beautiful place. It's good to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I loved just the beauty of the statues and the space and the music. And so from pretty early on, I had kind of a draw to heavenly things.
Mm.
Um, been lots of ups and downs in that relationship along the way, which is a podcast for another time. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
kind of in the space that I was reflecting on this question, very much in the context of my mission experience, because that was just one of the most transformative experiences of my life. It it happened coming out of probably the hardest year of mine and my husband's lives to date. The answer to everything the year leading up to going on mission was no. And it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't anymore. And I had a lot of doubt about who God was and how he saw me. Um, and I was in a really, really difficult place spiritually. And yet he kept sending me these little like love notes along the way of like, I'll explain later, just hang in there.
Mm.
I'm with you. It's going to be okay. It won't make sense right now if I tell you everything, but like just hang on.
Mm.
And somehow by his grace I did. Um, and so many of the ways that he revealed his love to me, I was kind of um, pondering that question last night, and I was like, where do you even begin?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it
Mm-hmm.
was every single day on mission, just the ordinary life we had there, um, looking up at the sky and little conversations with my students and moments with my husband and just going out for walks and kindness from strangers. And I mean, just the breeze on my face there. It was
Mm.
like he was so present to me there. And it was just it was like I spent 2 years on silent retreat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and especially since the community we served, um, were also foreigners in that country, but they weren't from the US, so they weren't fluent in English. They were being watched by the government. They couldn't really minister to us a lot spiritually.
Mm.
Um, the internet was censored. It was hard to find, resources, and we were the only people we knew. It was me and my husband. There was no other like volunteer community. So we were kind of on our own spiritually, and the ways that God came to me personally
Wow.
just continue to blow my mind.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just in prayer and also through my students, through giving that love to them. I remember I had a student who she was brilliant, but she didn't know it.
Mm.
And she had so many fears and insecurities. And she had friends who she's like, well, they're so smart. They don't have to try and they get good grades. And I struggle. And I guess that means that I'm not good. And I just tried to express my love for her uniquely. And I would think about, I don't want her to be anybody else. I don't need her to be different. I don't need her to be better. I love her just the way she is. And then one night I caught myself walking into our apartment comparing myself to somebody else. Why can't I be like her? Why don't I do things like her? And then I was, wait a minute. I thought of this kid and I felt the love I had for her. And it occurred to me, what if God loves me this way too?
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that one little moment kind of covers the whole of what mission was like, of just giving the love that God had planted in my heart to these kids. And through his mercy and multiplication, it came back to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all I wanted was to express to them, this is who you are and this is what you're worth. I couldn't talk about God. That was forbidden, not even, in covert spaces. And so I had to really dig deep in my faith and say, what is this actually? What does this mean to me? How would I translate this into simple language? And it turned out I had to be that love. I had to I couldn't hide behind anything. I couldn't say, well, God loves you. Just give it to Jesus. I had
Mm.
nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to say and mean and express through my words and actions, I love you. And
Wow.
it, I never expected that oppression to be a gift, but it's been the greatest gift to my faith to have to actually have nothing to hide behind and discover what it meant and have that love reflected back to me from our Lord of, do you feel that love that you feel for these kids? That is how I feel about you. So he revealed himself in ways that I just couldn't even plan for while we were on
Mm.
mission.
Mm-hmm. Well, the quote
Wow.
that comes to mind, which I think was, I think it's with Saint Francis of Assisi, is the preach the gospel at all times and when necessary use words. Like, what a real life true example of that. Be like, I have to be a walking, talking, living gospel without ever saying the name of Jesus. Like,
Yeah.
and it's such a unique like that was such a unique calling of you and your husband to become missionaries. Like, how did
Mm-hmm.
that come about? Like,
Oh my
where did
goodness.
I mean, I know we don't have hours to tell this story, but like,
Yeah.
how did
Um,
that, how did you guys come to that?
We're gonna have to have an Anna series of
Yeah.
podcasts.
Part one.
Yeah. So for me, I, this desire, this missionary calling has always been with me ever since I was small. I still have drawings from when I was little. I would draw pictures of kids holding hands around a globe. Um,
Oh.
and like, um, I was just nuts about people from different cultures, and it just spoke to me so deeply. And I just kind of was like, well, this is going to be a part of my life. I'm going to go serve people overseas somewhere, sometime it's going to happen. Um, and I married Wesley, the introvert homebody. And um,
Opposites attract.
so, yes, he's so dear, and we're so different, and I love him so much. He teaches me so much about just seeing the world through different eyes, and it's beautiful. And so, out of college, um, and realized, oh my gosh, I'm a grown up. I can just do this. And so my friend from high school, she was also looking into some volunteer opportunities, and we were looking around at organizations and locations. And she said, "Hey, do you want to go to India with me?" And I said, "Heck yes." Um, and I assumed I'm married, my husband will be going with me, and he was like, "Well, babe, no." Oh, slow down. He's like, "That's not my calling. I will be
Mm.
right here when you get back. It is yours."
Mm,
Um, and I had even uh, had to transition out of a job at that time, and so kind of set these plans down. And he was like, "Have you gotten your passport?" I'm like, "Well, no, I don't think I can go. You know, money's kind of tight." He's like, "Honey, if this
mm,
is a call from God, you need to do it."
mm.
Okay.
Praise
So I
God
got
for
my
his
passport.
support.
I
Amazing.
know.
Wow.
He's amazing.
Mm.
And got my passport, bought tickets to India, and went. It was my first time out of the US. Went to Calcutta,
Wow.
spent a month there, volunteered at one of the homes of the Missionaries of Charity for handicapped children. And in the mornings, and then in the evenings, we would go to a secular charity that was a night shelter in the red light district for children,
Mm.
to give them a safe space
Wow.
in that kind of rough environment.
Mm.
Um, and it was so much fun,
Mm.
literally so much fun. It was insanity. And so I come home and I'm like, honey, it was amazing. There were so much things in the streets. Motorcycles, oh, they came on the sidewalk too. Oh, and goats. Oh, and the air was terrible. You rub your nose and it would come off black.
Oh
And
my
oh, do you
gosh.
smell that? It smells like India. Oh yeah, it's always some kind of combination of livestock, wood smoke, and diesel. Yeah. And oh, I got dengue fever. And just went on and on. Oh, and I got thrown from an auto rickshaw. And don't worry, I landed on my feet. And like on and on and on. And I'd go, oh, I can't wait to go back. And he's like, what happened to you? What is going on? And I'm like, no, we got to go back. This is amazing. And he's like, this isn't my calling. And
Mm,
finally, a very dear friend said, you need to accept him for who he is. Don't
mhm,
push him.
mhm,
I said, okay, you're right. So I accepted him and I continued to just live my life and go about my work and kind of processing this experience. And one day he came to me and he said, "You ever think about going on mission again?" And I said, yes, why? And he's like, "Well, I don't know. I thought we could maybe do that together sometime." I'm sorry, who are you?
Who are you?
Okay. And so I'm like starting to look into organizations and I was like, wait, stop. We're not going to the heart of Africa so that you can discover this isn't for you and be like, well, you brought me here. No, sir. Why do you want to go?
mm,
And he said, well, ever since you came home from India, you're still you, but there's something different about you and it's good. And I want to know where it comes from.
mm,
And it just floored me. I never expected that response, but I was like, okay, that is a real thing.
mhm,
Let's do this. And so enter the hardest year of our lives, where the answer to everything was no.
mm.
And it was so disheartening. Um, we got a permanent infertility diagnosis. We
Oh
couldn't
my
afford our
gosh.
house anymore, sold it, got no money for it. We had three
Mm,
failed adoption attempts. We signed up for one mission organization. They turned us down. I mean, it was like uh, the middle of the year had me standing outside church, screaming at the sky, God, what do you want from me?
Mm.
Praise God, at that same mass, a missionary sister spoke directly to that, um, and essentially helped me understand that really deep in our mission experience, God doesn't want anything from me. He just wants me.
Mm.
And that I needed not to get so hung up on the ways he was expressing his love to me. I needed to open myself, and let myself be surprised by him and trust that whatever he does for me, he does in love. And so it was like that passage of this call kept coming back through all of this thing uniquely, not, well, we'll do this instead. This uniquely kept coming back in both of our hearts. This tug at, like, come with me, let me show you something. Will you trust me? And it was like, this makes no sense.
Mhm.
And it was like that passage of, Lord, we have been up all night
Yes, and have caught
and we
nothing.
have caught nothing. And he's
Mm.
like, cast it on the other side of the boat. And it's fine, fine. And so we did. Oh, God and I that year were just really, really blunt with each other.
Raw and real.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Yes. And so we did, and we found the Salesians, and we went, did some interviews with them, did a discernment weekend with them, and it was like, oh my gosh, there's somebody who speaks my native language.
Mm.
There's a home for me. There's somebody who understands. There's a place where I feel at home. Oh my gosh. And so we originally went through the whole process with them, preparing to leave. Originally, we're assigned to Malawi in Southeast Africa. And I was like, yay. And Wesley was like, sure, okay. And then we get to orientation, the 3 weeks of training before we get sent out. And the first full day, I had said in our discernment weekend, I will go anywhere except this one country. Look how open I am. I'll go 99% of places. Yay. And so the first day of training, our director comes to us and he's like, hey, Anna, Wesley, Malawi's not going to work out. The house isn't going to be built in time. And I was like, don't say it. I knew what he was going to say. And he's like, this country's open. Like, oh my gosh. So I like
Mm.
cried the whole day. And Wesley, that was his first choice. He's like, yes, I'm so excited. And oh man. And so I prayed and I had some intense heart to heart conversations with God and people I trust. And at the end of the day, realized saying no to this felt like fighting God. And I was like, I'm not excited about this, but it's right, and I'm gonna do it. And so I took our name tags. We had little printed name tags with like our name and the flag of the country where we were assigned. And so I took ours into the community room and I got out the markers and I X'd out that flag and I drew us a new flag and I put it on and I said, let's do this.
Mm.
Wow.
Um, and it was very hard when we got there at first. It was like being thrown into the deep end of a pool. I couldn't read
Mm-hmm.
anything, I couldn't understand anything. It was already winter, and it is a very different winter from Kentucky. And I did not have any clothes to like prepare me for this. My jeans were like wearing tissue paper. It
Oh
was
man.
like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, it was so intense. But yeah, I had a very intense encounter with God a few months in that allowed me to open myself and to really deeply fall in love with it. And when people
Mm.
ask, just had this marvelous experience. And so today, when people ask, oh, would you do it again? I'm like, tomorrow.
Mm.
And I just
Mm.
stay. It was wonderful.
Mm. Wow. Thank you so much for walking us through and all your vulnerability and sharing. I think it just has God's fingerprints all over it. Like how you're
Amen.
like
Amen.
99% of, Lord, like may my will be your will. And if it's not your will, well, let's work on it so it's my will. And yeah, just that blank check that you gave to him that was like, all right, Lord, like it's just, him saying, do you trust me? Like,
Yeah.
and and how beautiful too that, your husband who was hesitant of, wanting to be a missionary and all these things. In the end, it was his number one choice, you know? So even like
Hmm.
how the Lord allowed that to happen. And sorry, I love that God has a sense of humor, right? So
Oh, this has been just God is a series of winks and laughter. And I'm
yes.
like, you think you're funny? He's like, no, I know I'm funny. Like,
I
I'm
am funny.
hilarious.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know this about myself.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
Yes.
so
he,
going forward with like preparing you for your now mission. So
hmm
after you finished your missionary years, like what part of that led you toward discerning to become a spiritual director?
So
Or how did you
actually
even meet Regnum Christi too from the
Oh
city?
yeah, yeah, that part too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So the first inklings of spiritual direction actually came to me while we were on mission.
Mm,
Um, and um, I realized, especially in our unique situation, holy cow, this is hard. Like, wow, this is intense. We need support. And thankfully, I had some very good friends who, and family members who kept in touch with us. And it was helpful, but I was like, I'd really love maybe sometime to be that support for people serving. And so that was just kind of the first inklings of it. And then when we got back, I kind of fell backward into some things, Regnum Christi included. Um, you know, I I shared that it felt like being on silent retreat for 2 years, and it really did. And like
mm,
I recognized some places in myself that needed healing that no matter how much I prayed about them, it was like I need accompaniment in this. I can't do this by myself.
hmm
And
hmm
so sought what started as kind of a pastoral counseling situation, but then this retired priest that I was saying was like, "So you seem to be kind of looking for spiritual direction." And he described it to me, and I was like, "Yes, that, precisely that. Thank you for understanding." He became my director and still is, and he's the literal best.
mm,
Um, he's wonderful. And around that same time, I um, I came back and I had volunteered at a pregnancy help center prior to us leaving. Came back to touch base with them to see if there was anything I could maybe help out with. And one of my friends, who was Regnum Christi, invited me to an evening of reflection. And I had never heard of this, but I was like, sure, I admire this woman's faith. And sure, why not? Mission really opened us up to like the sure, why not? The
hmm Yeah. See where
the
the Lord leads.
see, let God surprise you. Like
Hmm
he what came to mind earlier when you were talking about that 99% openness, he had to flip my openness upside down.
hmm
It wasn't about how broad it was. It was not how many different things are you open to? It was, are you open to the one thing I desire of you? It was about depth. Um, and so we, yeah, now have a lifestyle where it's like, hey, this feels important. This feels like it's of God. Wow, that doesn't look like it's going to work. Yeah, just send the email, say yes, and we'll figure it out later. Like we know what he can do. We
Wow.
he'll get us there. And so I go to this evening of reflection, and I kid you not, it was uh, a legionary giving a talk on everything I had meditated on for 2 years by myself in my mission country.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, okay.
Hmm
And I was going through some pretty intense health struggles, which is why we came back instead of staying a third year. There just weren't the resources to give me the help and healing that I needed.
mm.
And so I was actually unable to speak when we got back. Um, I was silent for 7 months.
Whoa.
So I had to say, goodbye to my students, writing it on a phone. Um, it was intense. And so it stretched into the first months being back, and just the first woman I met at this evening of reflection, she's like, "Oh, I noticed like, you've got a thing going on." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a thing with a thing." And And she's like, that happened to me once. And she had had cancer treatment that had affected her voice for a bit. And she ended up saying, I'm going to be praying for you, first of all, for your healing, but second of all, that this is a really special time for you in Jesus. And
Mm.
I just stood there and was like, nobody's ever said anything like that to me before. Like, okay. And so then there's this talk, and it's what I've been praying about by myself in a foreign country for 2 years. And I'm like, what? And so my friend introduces me to this priest, and, I'm typing on my phone because I can't speak at the time. And a lot of people, like cashiers and stuff, would think I couldn't hear. And I'd have to reassure them I can hear you, I just can't talk. And so he asked, "May I see your phone?" And they're like, "Oh, she can hear." He's like, "I know." And he starts typing to me. He said, I want to be like her. He wanted to be in that with me and not let me be by myself in that.
Mm.
And I was like, who are these people? And so there was another one the next month. And then these two young women came over to me with this kind of mischievous smile on their face, like, hi. Um, so we have this small group, and we were kind of wondering if you'd maybe like to come. And one of the things I had prayed for on mission, I remember sitting in our mission country crying because I was like, God, I don't know if I'm gonna have any friends when we go back.
Mm.
I had realized I'd had a lot of space to think about what I wanted to keep in my life and what I didn't. And there were some relationships. It was like, oh, you don't treat me well and I don't have to accept that. And so there was this empty space and I was like, God, I don't, and all our friends were having, their first babies and it was like, I don't feel like I belong anymore.
Mm.
Um, God, can you send me friends? Is that something I can pray for? And so he really showed me the friendships I already had that were good and strong and to lean into those. And then these people popped up in my life. And it was a little while before I was able to go, but then it was like it just grew. And I think they were just so kind. Like their faith didn't make them judgmental. Their faith didn't
Mm.
make them put things in boxes and have all these, false expectations that don't even belong to God. And the thing that stood out to me was, these are other like young moms. And yet my situation of not being able to raise a family of my own um, wasn't a barrier to relationship with them. And the gift that was, I can hardly describe.
Mm.
We got to be different, and that was okay. We laugh. We did the charism study a few years ago from the Siena Institute, and our team leader and we laugh because we share a few. But we also, some of my like 15s, the high score are her zeros on the gifts inventory. Like I talk about the missionary charism. She's like, please don't make me go anywhere. And she is all hospitality. Like you drive up to her house and there's like a butterfly and a hummingbird on her flower at the same time, and you just feel healed. And she has scones and tea for you. And I'm like, hospitality is my anti-charism. Like, oh shoot, am I supposed to be offering you a glass of water? Like, oh dear. And so it was like, I got to be different. I got to be me.
Mm.
Um, and that was just so wonderful. And it discovering that like the aspects of Regnum Christi, contemplative and missionary, I was like, yeah, that's
Mhm.
me. And there was a moment where I was beginning to feel that invitation to like associate to Regnum Christi. And I was like, but oh my gosh, what about my Salesian family?
Mhm.
And we were blessed to go up to New York for a Salesian volunteer reunion. And it was just literally the most fun I've ever had. Like, oh my gosh, the laughter we shared over the craziness of mission was just the best. But I got to sit next to a Franciscan friar of the Renewal from the Bronx who came and said Mass for us. He was an SLM, Salesian lay missioner. And I was like, wait a minute, you discerned another calling too. And so we sat next to each other and I was like, can we talk about discerning a new path? Because like this is my home, this is my family. how do I move in a new direction? And he said, God's path isn't as linear as we would like it to be. It's often this serpentine shape, but
Mm,
it's we can trust it. We can lean
mm-hmm,
into it, and it doesn't have to be what we would design. And having, reflecting on my mission experience, it was not what I would have designed. Reflecting on the ways he's blessed me through an infertility experience I never would have designed. And it was like, oh, if it's him, probably that is the thing that healed the most through my mission experience was my trust in God,
mm-hmm,
knowing that if it's him that's calling, just say yes. Um, and he will work out the rest. And so having that conversation with him, um, to say like this will always be your home and family, and you can trust him, that it all works together. It's not a competition. It's not putting it in, separate boxes with barriers. It's just his unique path for you, and it all works together, and we all work together. It was like, okay, I had the peace to say, here we go,
mm-hmm.
let's do this. And so that priest that gave that first evening of reflection presided at my um, association mass and fist bumped me as we were headed in. And it was just like, okay, this is awesome. Um,
Mm.
and with spiritual direction, it just was, I really enjoyed my own direction. Um, and then as I started doing speaking engagements, as I started just living here, it started to just find me.
Mm.
People would want to talk to me, even just at like a party, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm telling you my life story, and I don't really know why, but I'm really glad that I am." And I'm like, "Okay, um, great." Um, and there would be people and strangers I met in parking lots that were like, needed me to like pray with them.
Mm.
And it was just like, I have no idea what's going on, but okay. And then people who would say like, "Hey, can you be my spiritual director?" And I'm like, "No. I can be an encouraging friend." But I started to get hints of like something's up,
Mm-hmm.
like something is going on. And so I had just expressed to like my husband and my spiritual director, I think I'm feeling called to spiritual direction. And not 3 weeks later, our team leader was like, "Hey, so we're looking to support some people." I hadn't told her. "We're looking to support some people through formation and being spiritual directors, and I thought of you."
Wow.
And the doors just slammed open. I
Mm.
mean, it was like, oh, I guess we'll take some steps. And it was incredible. They all just like slammed open before me, and it was like, all right. And Divine Mercy University's program is just wonderful. It is so practical, so thoughtful, so prayerful, deeply intense,
Mm-hmm.
very challenging, has you face all your insides, but not alone.
Mm.
And it was such a gift. And so it just felt so right for how God created me. And it's just been such a blessing. It's so much fun. I love it. I have directees who hit those slides into the deep in your interior and your relationship with God, and they're like, "Oh no!" And I'm like, "Oh yes." Like this is where it gets
Here we
exciting.
go.
I'm right there with you, and I feel your discomfort, and I'm not gonna, tease you about it, but I am so excited right now. Like you are
Mm.
in it, and I'm loving it, and
That reminds me of
it's
that
so
scene
much
from
fun.
Emperor's New Groove. It's like, don't tell me. We're about to go over a huge waterfall. Yep. Sharp rocks at the bottom? Most
Most
likely.
likely.
Bring it
Bring it on.
on. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Me post mission is like, bring it on.
Bring it
Bring it
on.
on. Wow. And I can't help but also see the parallel, Anna, that you weren't able to speak about God with your students there in that country in the mission. And then you literally lost your voice, like
Mm-hmm.
physically. And all of that deep, deep purification and just like the Lord stripping away every like security and everything is now enabled you to lean on him and have your all of your security, identity, everything in him and like now you're using your voice to speak of him, to speak about him, to guide others to his heart. Like I just can't help but see that amazing parallel. Like he gave it back to you purified in this beautiful mission oriented gift.
Yeah, he made it very clear through our mission and especially through spiritual direction, how much he desires my healing and wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
And that the ways that I would like to go around it and be like, no, 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 don't worry about that. I'm just going to do a good job. I'm going to, do all the things. I'm going to serve. I'm going to this. I'm going to that. And he's like, no, no, because you are mine. You
Hmm.
are what I care about. And it's going to be the overflowing of my love from your heart that is going to bless the world, not you trying to hustle for your own worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it became, yeah, intensely clear, especially in spiritual direction school. I must heal. Um, it there's a principle of Salesian education that says never ask your students to do anything you wouldn't do yourself.
Hmm.
And so I lived that in a lot of really practical ways. And also, I wrote letters to my students as we were leaving. And I'm writing things in there like, you're amazing and it's been so wonderful to know you. I hope you never stop learning and like have confidence in yourself. And I realized I don't have confidence in myself, but I knew that I meant it for them. And so I'm sealing these letters and I'm like, I'm sealing my fate. I'm sealing a promise to them that I will never do anything. I will never ask them to do anything I wouldn't do myself. And so it was like, I will go with you. I will commit to this. And just seeing the personal love that
Mm-hmm.
God has for me, that it's not how much I pray, it's not how much I serve, it's not any of those things. It's just his wild love for me
Mm-hmm.
um, that I get to be a witness to just by walking around
Hmm.
and the gifts he's given me through facing some of the things that I've been through that needed healing. It's like I get to see what he can do in ways that again I wouldn't have planned for, but
Mm-hmm.
are just amazing. I've never come so close to getting a tattoo as post mission. Because I will sometimes actually, I've finally gotten the little gold bracelet to commemorate it, but I will sometimes write it on my wrist in our mission language from Isaiah 43, be not afraid.
Hmm.
I am with you. I've called you by your name. You are
Mm-hmm.
mine.
Mm-hmm.
That be not afraid is what the gift that he gave to me. Um, and by his grace, apparently, based on what directees are saying to me, it's what I'm sharing with other people.
Yeah.
Not because I'm special or made of better stuff, but because he loves us so much.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And man, when we open ourselves to that, just it's an adventure.
Yes.
Well, and I love that. I feel like the thread that kind of weaves your whole story together is that like that tale of who you really are, that tale of your worthiness. And you talked at first of the young girl that you were saying like no, like if you could only see yourself for who you really are, and then having that reflected back to you. And you said later on in the story like he doesn't want anything from me, he just wants me,
Mhm.
like all
Yeah.
that I am, every part of me, like that, just like. And then when you found Regnum Christi and you found like this priest speaking to you and saying like I got to be different and be me because there's a place for me, like in this church there is a place for my specific gifts that I have, even if I'm not entirely sure what that means or how to go with it. Like, okay, God, like let's go. Like I'm going to be my different self. And he has all those purifying moments with you. Like, I cannot imagine being an extrovert and an external processor. Like being silent for 7 months would be a literal torture to me to not be able to talk. Like, no, thank you, God, please, like, take this cup from me. Like, I cannot imagine. And but through that, like that woman told you, like, this is going to be a very special time between you and Jesus. Like, you're going to get to places that otherwise you wouldn't have. Like, what an incredible, like the continuation of, like you said at the very beginning in the year when everything was no, like God saying, just hang on. It's going to be beautiful. Like, just hold on. And I feel like there are so many of our listeners that can really relate to those moments where, like, God, I can't hear you. I can't see you. I can definitely not feel you. I'm just going to hang on. Like, I'm going to hold on to hope, hold on to peace, hold on to when you have revealed yourself to me in the past, I'm going to hang on and trust that you were leading me somewhere good. Like
Hmm.
I've had that. I mean, I know from experience, I've had that happen in my own life where I'm like, okay, Jesus, I don't know if this next step is going to have me falling off a cliff. Like I'm going to take this step and trust that you are going to be there to catch me. And I love that, like that continuation of his fidelity throughout your entire story. Like you
Yes.
are worthy. There is a
Yes.
place for you. Like
Yes.
God is so good.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I
Mhm.
think a big affirmation I received along the way was you don't have to do this alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of those affirmations from him, especially early on where things were so hard and so unclear, was from other people who had been through some hard things. And one of them, I was telling her she hadn't seen me for a while as a family friend, and how are things? Not great. And she was like, oh, wow. And not everybody at the time was willing to be with me in that difficult place that, well, God has a plan. Okay, but do I matter in it?
Mm,
And I wasn't sure that I did, and they weren't really expressing to me that I did. But she was like, oh, wow, that's really hard. She was with me. And then she said, he's picked you out for something special. And I don't know what it is, but it's going to be amazing.
Mhm.
And I'm sure of it. And it
Mhm.
just, I knew that she um, was battling cancer and has since passed away from that. But her faith was just vibrant.
mm,
And so I was like, it was a turning point for me of, oh no, he loves me. And there's that missionary sister who just keep praising God.
Mhm.
And it's not about, having babies. It's not about what he wants from you. It's about love and just her joy. I was like, this woman, I kind of, have seen some of the things from where she lives, and she's been through some things. She's seen some things. And yet she has this joy. Who is this? Who
mm,
is this God that she loves and that she says loves me? Um, and getting to hear, we did a reentry workshop um, after we came back from mission, reintegrating into life here. And that was such a grace. Getting to hear other missioners, you get to tell your long story, your heart story, in a room full of people who understand. And hearing their stories and getting to share mine and seeing how vastly different our days were and
mm,
our experiences were, and yet this unifying spirit of the God who was the mover of it all. And the grace I walked away from that retreat was, it's not just, oh, God loves me. It's no, no, no. God loves me specifically and intentionally. And he wove this together with precision and love and intention. And he will continue to do so. And just the it was like he had healed my trust on mission and just really, really sealed it on that retreat
mm,
of like how specifically and intentionally he loves me.
mm,
Mhm. Anna, thank you so much for, I mean, you've told your story, but then also I love what you said, the long story, the heart story,
mm,
of what
mm,
he, I think what's more fascinating than even, the exciting adventure of going to a foreign country and everything is the adventure that goes on between the soul and God and all that he did in the depths while you were there. And I guess at the end of this conversation, I just have gratitude for how obviously our listeners can't see you, but the joy every time you said, it's so fun. It's so exciting. It's so, exhilarating to follow the Lord and what he desires. And this ministry that found me, it just flips on its head mission as some kind of obligatory thing that I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
have to get the task done. It's this
Mhm.
burdensome thing that I just have to check off, like, like a list, a to-do list, but to live mission from his heart, and like you said, people would come to you and just start telling them, just telling you their life story, or the guys in the parking lot or whatever, it's not something that you had to like conjure and force up, it was
No.
you being fully alive. So I have gratitude for your testimony of this renewed vision of mission, as something that flows from love and is a response to love, and comes from your charisms and your gifts, and just yeah, that mission is not a duty, it's a joy, and it's being a collaborator in somebody else's heart as they transform into Jesus Christ. So, yeah, I think that's my takeaway of gratitude. And I also wondered, do you have any talks that are online, or is it just speaking, more um, to parishes or groups?
I don't have any recorded things online. I do have some talks that are available over Zoom. My mission talk, I don't do online just because of how sensitive it is, but I am open to traveling. I'm actually traveling in the spring to do some retreats out of state.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Do you have a website
whatever.
or like a
I
platform
do,
where
yeah,
people could find you online?
I do. It's misaest.org.
Wonderful.
And yeah, I definitely looking to grow and looking for where God is leading me with this. And He
Mm.
continues to surprise me. And
Mm.
yeah, bring it on.
Bring it on. Love it.
Well, I'm very, very grateful because I feel like even though like I've met you a few times at Encounter, like I didn't know the whole story or not, I mean, not that this is the whole story. I didn't know this part of the story. So I'm just really grateful just for my own sake to have this time with you to get to know you better and to hear more of your heart. Like that's such a gift to me that you were able to come on here. And I think we've seen this before, like your testimony, like it's a true story of your pain of your heart and you being willing to share it. Um, like Laura said, raw. That is very, very much a gift to our listeners and to Laura and I. And I'm just very, very grateful that you took the time to come on here today, Anna, and to share that part of yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. It's always a gift to reflect on this story and to hear it reflected back to me
Mm.
and just to share it in more hearts and see God's love come alive more.
Hmm.
So
And
thank
I've
you.
never done this to any guest on the podcast, but I just feel inspired. Would you like to end this podcast with a prayer for all of
Ye-
the listeners and for us?
would I? Oh, like me
Like to,
pray?
yeah.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Loving God, thank you so much for your heart, for your joy, for your accompaniment in all that we go through. Thank you for bringing us together today, for the love that you plant and grow in each of our hearts and in this world. You are here, you are now, you are with us always. Bless everyone that this will reach. Bless their families, their work, their joys, and their sorrows. You say to each of us, I have called you by your name. You are mine. Be not afraid. Give us the grace to trust in your heart, your love for us, and to remember that you are the way, and you have us always in the palm of your hand. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. I hope
Thank
that
you.
everyone that's listened has been blessed by this story, and that maybe each one of us can take some time before Jesus this week just to reflect on where he is, yeah, creating us fully alive, and where we can respond in joy and love to the mission he has for this moment. So, thank you.